Excellent, thank you. Thanks so much for inviting me here today and for inviting the Sustainability Forum. It's great to see a full house here. Thanks very much for that introduction. And yeah, we're really privileged to be part of the first of the business cafes, and really hope to be involved in future events like this. I think it's really timeous that this is kicked off, and the topics that we're discussing today, I think, are going to set a great platform for discussions in future. So I've got a few notes here because I do tend to go a little bit off topic, and I know that the time's a bit tight, and Piet is the main attraction here today, and I'm sure you're all anxious to hear what he's got to say. So. Distraction. So yeah, I think I've got 20 minutes. You know, I think, Dennis, where are you? Dennis has set the scene fantastically with his presentation so far. And it's really got me thinking about where I fall in that continuum of worried to optimistic, from the red to the blue zone. And yeah, I think quite a few of us probably find ourselves very much in that a little bit of a despair, a little bit in that worried zone. And yeah, how do we go about moving into that optimistic area? And for me, it's really all about action. You know, I think there's a lot of sort of paralysis in pessimism. And once you actually start doing something, even small steps, you know, in your own backyard where you can, then you start moving into that area of optimism, and that starts generating a sense of purpose and hope, which is very contagious. And yeah, and you know, as a community, we need to sort of start taking back that control and taking action where we can. So thanks very much for that, Dennis. So what I'm going to be talking about this morning is the 4 E's for sustainability. And if you've looked at our pamphlet and had a peek there, you've probably had a bit of a preview into what those are. But we'll be talking about those a bit later. Just a little bit more about me. If it sounds like this presentation is personal, I guess because it is. And you know, we have to start taking these things personally. You know, they're not academic anymore. They're not theoretical. They're affecting us personally. And you know, I've been an environmental scientist. You gave away the number of years there, but for many years. And I realized the other day that I worked a large part of my career in an industry which I now come to see as one of the most extractive, exploitative, manipulative industries, and that's mining, particularly in my case in the diamond mining industry. And you know, I realize now that I've actually given quite a lot of my energy into something that hasn't given a whole lot of value in a real sense, and it's largely been supporting man's greed and woman's vanity. And you know, I think it's enough of that. You know, for me, it really is about starting to put energy into our backyard. And so I was very pleased when Rob and Steve and the guys from the Sustainability Forum roped me in to be part of their team and to start being involved more in the garden route area. And yeah, just a little bit more about the forum. The flyers, as I said, are available. You can always check us out there, and our contact details are available there. And yeah, essentially we are a not-for-profit company founded in 2019 and locally based here in George, and founded by a group of scientists, largely from a scientific background, who really feel passionate about making a difference here in the garden route area. We are a registered not-for-profit company, and Yeah, I think one of our bases is really about creating a platform for the community to engage on sustainability issues and environmental issues in the garden route. We do have a website. It is GIS enabled, so it allows people to go on there and to register any projects or concerns that they might have. And we then take those issues up further with who we see might be involved in those areas, see how we can assist the process and resolve those issues. So it's very much about getting the conversation going with the public. But I think more than that, we really interested in getting our hands dirty. We really want to take projects to ground, and we see ourselves as an agency which can facilitate that process in the garden route. So we're constantly looking for partners in business, in the authorities, and in community representation and organizations, and how we can start tackling some of these issues in a very proactive way. Okie doke. So, yeah, let's get back on topic here. So, yeah, I think Dennis has outlined the global risks, and I wasn't very surprised to see that the top 3 of those that are going to be facing us in the next 10 years are environmental risks, and I think I'm not going to dwell on that. You only have to turn on the TV or go into social media to see what the latest disaster has hit the world, or environmental catastrophe is taking place, at least in 2 or 3 places in the world at any one time. So, yeah, I think probably get enough of that in the media as it is. But I think, what we can all agree is that, yeah, things are pretty much falling apart. And Steve and I, we talk about the Petri dish. And we talk about if you have a Petri dish and you've got a colony of bacteria in that Petri dish with the media, and eventually that bacteria will just eat up all that media until it gets to the edge of that Petri dish, and won't be able to go any further, and essentially will die. And we sort of say, well, we're starting to hit our head against the edge of that Petri dish at the moment. Perhaps a better model to look at is the donut model for sustainable development. And this was initially proposed by Kate Raworth in her book, 7 Ways to Think Like a 21st Century Economist. And I think it's a very neat way of illustrating where we want to be and the challenges that are facing us as a species. And essentially where we want to be is in that green space in the middle, the safe, just space for humanity. And that space is defined on the outside by our planetary boundaries and on the inside by our social foundation. Push beyond that, the ecological ceiling, and essentially we're impacting on the very systems that sustain us. If you undermine your social foundation, then we start suffering, as societies, as individuals. And Dennis has already sort of touched on quite a few of those. So unfortunately, we're not doing too well on that. And in many aspects, we've pushed well beyond the boundary of that ecological ceiling and affecting our systems and our environment in terms of climate change, our biodiversity loss, land conversion, and nutrient loading are the big ones that are out there at the moment. On the other hand, we've also undermined our social foundation, and we are seeing a lot of suffering all over the place in terms of our political unrest, peace and justice, housing, networks, energy, on a number of fronts there. So the challenge is really, how do we repair that social foundation and move back into that green space without pushing past, again, the ecological ceiling. I think that this is not equal across the world. I think, Dennis showed the illustration of where South Africa stands globally. A lot of the global environmental issues obviously are more cross-cutting, But in terms of those social issues, those will be more dependent on the vulnerability of the communities and the resilience of each community to be able to deal with those issues. So I want to move on to the 5 E's, and these do appear in our little pamphlet, so if you battle to read these up here. The first of those, and this is really how we see the solutions to how we can get to a sustainable base again and move into that green zone. This was really coined initially by the Post-Carbon Institute, and but they saw them more as crises. We like to turn them around and see them as solutions. And the first is ecology. Sorry, Steve keeps like showing fingers at me here. 5, 10 minutes and things. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just give a bit of an example just now, which will make it a lot more relevant to the garden route. But yeah, in terms of ecology, we don't just have to start pulling back our ecological footprint. We also need to start putting back. We need to start building our ecological systems again. We need to reinvent them. We need to support them. And yeah, we need to balance essentially our needs with the demands on the environment. The economy is the next piece of the puzzle, the next E. And we need to look at ways of how we can transform to a low-carbon economy, which is both resource efficient and ecologically sustainable. And Dennis has spoken quite a lot on the economy, so I won't dwell on that much more. The third one is energy, and I think this is very relevant at the moment, obviously in the crises that we're facing currently. We need to reduce our reliance on non-renewable energy and look at ways that we can transform to renewable energy without compromising our other systems, without compromising our biodiversity, for example. And I think that's a balancing act and a challenge that's going to be facing this country, for many years to come. But in terms of energy, we also look at it in terms of food security. So that's one of the big crises facing us at the moment. And how do we build community-based food security, cut down on our supply chains, and keep things local and build resilience in our own food security? The third part of the puzzle is the equity, and that cuts across the other E's, and that's really about building a resilient and equitable society, an inclusive economy, which involves all sectors of society, and in which all can participate and prosper, and that's really important. So when you put all those parts of the puzzle together, and you see how they are independent and separate issues, but they're all connected. And for me, that's when the magic really sort of happens. And you can see how these can work together and the synergies that really come out of applying these 4 E's. And I want to just finish off by giving an example, because after all, I said it's how it relates to the garden route. Here we are nestled between the mountain and the sea. We've got our river systems, our garden route dam. You'll be very happy to see there, Muriel, that the city doesn't sort of extend as far as the garden route dam just yet. We've also got agricultural lands. This whole area falls within the Biosphere Reserve as well, which is recognized for its social and its ecological richness. So this is where we are. November 2018, crisis happens. We have our massive fires, and I think that's very clear in a lot of people's memory. We all have our own experience of that and the disaster that happened. Over 90,000 hectares burnt, 9 lives lost, a lot of infrastructure, and a burn scar which is many times the size of George. And essentially that's only the George fires. Previous year, obviously, we had the Knysna fires. So that's the problem. the crisis that we faced. Now, when we went and looked at it, or if you go and look at it, one of the reasons is for the fire, the intensity, the distraction, the spread of it was the alien vegetation that we have growing on our mountain, that we have extending down our river courses. One of the causes, I'm not saying it was the only cause. Let's just take this as an example. So we have a lot of black wattle, for example. So a potential solution then, and I must just mention as well that a lot of that has now come back. It hasn't just burnt out and gone away. It's come back with vigor and intensity. And it's something that we really, really have to get on top of as soon as possible. So one of the solutions is to eradicate that, to control that. You start a project, and the immediate benefits that you get from that, besides just fire risk reduction, is you're restoring your biodiversity, you're improving your ecosystem services, you're potentially, mitigating your flood risk by improving the vegetation in your catchment areas. You're providing economic opportunities. There's business opportunities for SMMEs to get involved in the projects. You're providing employment, skills training, possible beneficiation projects as well that'll come out of it. You also then say, well, okay, there's an opportunity here to create a new industry. You're creating all this biomass, you can possibly look at converting that into biochar or compost, okay, which can then be used in your agriculture, in both your commercial agriculture and your sustainable agriculture practices. You put carbon back in the soil as compost or biochar, it improves the soil quality. It increases your water retention, and it reduces your irrigation requirements as well. And it also means that you use a whole lot less fertilizer because those are retained there. So it's a win on the agricultural side as well. If you look a little bit further, if you're restoring your biodiversity and opening up your mountain access, you're improving your tourism opportunities, which creates a whole and supports a whole industry on itself. You're ensuring a safe, a sustainable and a clean water supply to your dams through clearing out your catchment areas. A more sustainable water source and supply to the town means that we can grow in a sustainable fashion. It also means that you reduce your energy requirements because you're not having to pump from other catchments all the time, and you're not having to do costly treatment of your sewage to recycle that back into the system. In terms of your the harvesting of your biomass, there's also an opportunity you can create that into, process that into firewood, which in itself is an energy source. From your biochar and your compost, there's an opportunity to generate energy in that process. And obviously there's business opportunities and employment in that industry as on its own. In terms of your agriculture, you've got reduced energy requirements on that side as well, because you're not having to pump to irrigate and to transport and purchase fertilizer from large distances away. So there's a win there as well. And then finally, that all leads to food security, improved food security in the area. Improved water quality, because you're getting less of your chemicals leaching into your systems. You're using less water for your agricultural practices. You're also putting carbon back in the soil. There's a business opportunity in that as well. You're sequestrating carbon. You're creating a tradable commodity which can be sold as carbon credits, the proceeds of which could possibly then go back into local upliftment projects, say, such as community market gardens, and that sort of thing. So I think this just clearly illustrates how those 4 E's can work together in supporting sustainability in our garden route area. And I really believe that we have the ability to do this. I think this area is special. I think that we have the resources, we've got the people, we certainly have the know-how and the willingness. We've got the environment. Geographically, we're quite confined. Our boundaries are relatively small and manageable, and we could be a real example, I think, to the rest of the country and how we could get it right here. And if we get it right here, we've got a model that then can go and be applied elsewhere. And that's really, really what I want to say this morning, is that I'm really excited about that. I think that from the Sustainability Forum side of things, we're very keen and willing, to roll up our sleeves, get involved with local partners and tackle these projects. We have Dennis as our chairman of the forum, and we're very, very fortunate to have him. He keeps our feet firmly on the ground and he keeps us pointed in the right direction. And my two colleagues, Steve and Stead and Rob Fincham, I know that they feel the same way as I do about this as well. So thanks for being here this morning. That's great.